It was a day like any other on Earth. People moved about their daily routines, unaware of the storm that was about to change everything. Cities were bustling, markets were busy, and children were playing in the streets. The sun was shining, and the sky was clear, but there was a tension in the air, something that could not be seen, but was felt by those who had been paying attention. For years, humanity had been trying to stay peaceful, trying to avoid conflict with the alien species that had begun to visit Earth. The world had been at war before. The scars from past battles were still visible in some parts of the planet. But this time, it was different. Humanity had grown tired of fighting. They had hoped that diplomacy could work, that peace could be achieved. For decades, Earth's leaders extended their hands to the stars, trying to build relationships with the alien species they encountered. They sent ambassadors, signed treaties, and held summits. But each time, humanity's efforts were met with betrayal. The aliens had no interest in peace. They were interested in power, time and again. Earth's leaders were forced to watch as their kindness was repaid with violence. The first wave of alien visitors had come under the guise of friendship, but it didn't take long for humanity to realize that these friends were invaders. They came in peace, but they didn't stay in peace. Instead, they demanded resources, land, and control. When Earth resisted, the aliens retaliated with weapons far more advanced than anything humans had ever seen. The Earth's military stood no chance. The world leaders tried to reach out again, sending emissaries to alien ships, begging for peace. But the aliens were not interested. They struck Earth with unrelenting force, devastating entire cities. And yet, Earth did not respond with anger. Instead, they tried to rebuild. They tried to negotiate once more, hoping that this time the aliens would see reason. But every attempt failed. By the time the third wave of invaders arrived, humanity was at the brink of collapse. Entire regions of Earth had been wiped out. The alien fleets descended once more, not to offer peace, but to claim more territory. The humans, helpless against the superior alien technology, had no choice but to retreat. And still, they tried to be kind. Still, they tried to speak the language of diplomacy. But the aliens did not understand the human need for peace. They only saw weakness. Then came the breaking point. It wasn't a single event. It was the slow and steady accumulation of countless failures, losses, and betrayals. Humanity's patience had been stretched to its breaking point. People were starting to lose hope. The leaders who had once pushed for peace were now growing desperate. They could no longer ignore the truth. The aliens would never leave. They would keep coming, again and again, until Earth was nothing but a conquered wasteland. The final straw came when the aliens attacked Earth's last remaining stronghold, a city that had been spared from the previous waves. The city was a symbol of resistance, a place where humans had gathered their strength to rebuild. The alien fleet descended like vultures, ready to claim the last bastion of human hope. The military, already weakened and worn, tried to defend it, but it was hopeless. The aliens were too powerful, their weapons too advanced. But something was different this time. Instead of retreating, instead of waiting for another round of peace talks that would never come, something changed in the hearts of the people. The fear that had kept them silent for so long turned to anger. For the first time, the people of Earth were not afraid of the aliens. They were angry at the lies, the betrayals, the deaths. And in that anger, they found their strength. At that very moment, Captain Elena Stark stood in the war room of Earth's last defense base. She had seen the destruction of her home city. She had watched her friends, her comrades, fall in battle. She had heard the endless negotiations, the endless promises of peace that never materialized. And now, standing in the shadows of the ruined city, Elena felt something rise within her. It was a burning, relentless fury. She turned to her team of elite soldiers, each one ready to follow her to the end. "This ends now," she said, her voice steady but filled with fire. "We're not asking any more. We're taking what's ours." Elena's words resonated through the room, and the soldiers nodded. There was no longer any room for diplomacy. No more waiting for a solution that would never come. The time had come for humanity to fight back, to stand up and say enough. They had been too kind for too long. The aliens had underestimated the human spirit, and now they would pay the price. As Elena and her team prepared for the mission ahead, Earth's leaders made the final, unanimous decision. The time for talking was over. It was time for war. They had nothing left to lose, and in that moment, the fate of Earth was sealed. No longer would humanity stand by and wait for the next invasion. They would fight, and they would win. The countdown began. The ships lifted off the ground, the engines roaring as they shot into the sky, ready to take the battle to the stars. The soldiers, armed with advanced weapons and a new sense of purpose, knew this was their last chance. This was humanity's answer to the alien threat. No more peace talks, no more kindness. The war for Earth had begun. And this time, humanity would not back down. The massive shadow of the alien fleet loomed over Earth, blocking out the sun as it cast a dark pall across the planet. Humanity's worst fear had become a reality. The invaders, ruthless and unyielding, had descended once more. But this time, it wasn't a surprise. There would be no calm before the storm. The people of Earth knew it was coming, and they had braced themselves for the worst. Still, nothing could prepare them for the overwhelming scale of the invasion. Cities that had once stood proud and tall were reduced to rubble in mere moments. The aliens' weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever faced. In an instant, their ships unleashed devastating waves of energy, tearing through Earth's most advanced defenses like paper. Buildings crumbled, and streets were turned into chasms of fire and dust. The skies were filled with smoke, and the ground shook with each alien strike. It was as if the planet itself was being torn apart. But amidst the chaos, the world didn't stop moving. There were no cries of surrender. There was no panic. Instead, there was a calm determination that settled over humanity. The fighting spirit, long buried beneath years of diplomacy and peaceful attempts, finally rose to the surface. In the heart of the devastation, Elena Stark, captain of the Earth Defense Forces, stood at the front lines, watching the destruction unfold. Her team of elite soldiers stood beside her, weapons raised, ready to fight. Their faces were grim, but there was no fear in their eyes, only resolve. For years, they had prepared for this moment. They had trained for battle, knowing that someday the enemy would come again, and this time, they would not back down. They had been waiting for the moment when humanity could no longer afford to be the diplomats of the galaxy. They were ready for war. Elena's voice rang out, cutting through the chaos. "We fight back now," she commanded, her tone unwavering. "They thought we would crumble, but they were wrong. This is our world, and we will defend it." Her words struck a chord with the soldiers around her. As they moved into position, the alien invaders had underestimated humanity's resilience. They thought Earth's citizens were weak, too busy with their peace talks and negotiations to fight for their own survival. But the alien race had made a grave mistake. As Earth's last remaining defense forces scrambled to mobilize, humanity's true power began to emerge. They had been pushed to the edge, but they were not broken. From the remnants of their cities, soldiers, civilians, and volunteers rallied to the cause. People from all walks of life grabbed whatever weapons they could find and joined the fight. Earth's desperation became its greatest strength. The tide of the invasion had turned, and now it was the aliens who would feel the fury of humanity. The human military had been preparing for this moment for years, knowing that peace would eventually fail. Hidden in secret bunkers and underground bases, advanced technologies were being developed, weapons designed to counter the alien threat. The invaders had brought their powerful ships and weapons, but humanity had something they didn't: a fierce will to survive. And in the face of destruction, Earth's ingenuity and spirit began to shine through. Elena and her team fought through the wreckage, weaving through the ruins of their once thriving cities, their advanced armor protecting them from the onslaught. The air was thick with smoke, and the ground trembled with the alien forces' assault. But the humans pressed on. Their mission was clear: take back what was theirs. The alien ships hovered above, casting long, menacing shadows as they fired down on the ground. But humanity was no longer hiding. They were no longer running. They were fighting back with everything they had. The battle was fierce, but it was not one-sided. The human soldiers, equipped with high-tech weapons and exosuits that granted them strength beyond ordinary limits, clashed head-on with the alien forces. Explosions rocked the battlefield as both sides unleashed everything in their arsenal. But with every blast that echoed through the air, something remarkable happened. The humans were winning. Elena could feel the power of her soldiers around her. They were working together as a single unit, using their skills and intelligence to outmaneuver the alien invaders. The aliens, who had expected an easy conquest, were now on the defensive. They had underestimated the heart of humanity. As Elena advanced through the battlefield, her eyes focused on the horizon where the alien mothership loomed, a gargantuan structure that commanded the sky, the core of the invasion. If they could take down the mothership, the rest of the alien fleet would be crippled. But the task was almost impossible. The ship was heavily fortified, and the path to it was littered with alien soldiers and weapons. Still, Elena didn't hesitate. She could see the victory in her mind. The day Earth would rise up from the ashes and reclaim its place in the universe. "We're going in," Elena ordered. Her voice was steady, but the gravity of the situation was clear. There was no turning back. Her team of elite soldiers nodded and formed up around her, preparing for the final push. They were going straight into the heart of the enemy's power, where death was all but certain. But it didn't matter. Elena's heart burned with the certainty that humanity would no longer bend the knee to anyone, not the aliens, not any power that sought to dominate Earth. The time for peace had passed. Now, it was time to fight. As the team moved forward, the camera zoomed in on their faces, each soldier resolute, their eyes filled with a fire that could not be extinguished. The once peaceful Earth, known for its diplomacy and cooperation, had transformed into a battleground where only one side would stand victorious, and that side would be humanity. The alien mothership loomed ever closer, and the final assault was about to begin. The fight for Earth's future had just entered its most critical phase. The war had begun, and humanity was no longer asking for mercy. They were demanding victory. And as the first of the alien warships exploded in a brilliant flash of light, one thing was certain: the aliens had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated the resolve of Earth, and now they would face the full force of humanity's wrath. The heavy hum of machinery filled the air, and the ground shook with the vibrations of Earth's last remaining defenses mobilizing. The hum wasn't just the sound of warships and weapons systems coming online. It was the sound of humanity's determination, the heartbeat of a planet that had been pushed to its limit. No more diplomacy, no more negotiations. Earth had reached a breaking point, and now there was only one choice left: fight or die. The weight of that decision hung heavily in the air, but for the first time in years, it felt like humanity had found its backbone again. Inside a dimly lit underground command center, Elena Stark-paced, her mind racing through 1,000 thoughts at once. The flickering screens showed live footage of the alien fleets descending, their ships massive and cold, brimming with technology far beyond anything Earth could dream of. The forces of Earth, scattered and broken, had already started to rally, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. "Where are the reinforcements?" Elena snapped, turning to one of her commanders. She couldn't afford delays. The alien invaders were gaining ground, and time was running out. "They're coming," the commander replied, his voice tight with anxiety. "But they're not ready. We're still under heavy fire from the outer zones. The alien forces are relentless." Elena's jaw tightened. She knew the situation was grim, but there was no time to waste. They had been forced into a corner, but they had no intention of staying there. Her eyes flicked toward the map of Earth's remaining strongholds. The cities that had withstood the alien onslaught were now the last lines of defense, scattered like islands on a vast, hostile ocean. She knew one thing for sure: the world was running out of time, and it was up to her and her team to tip the balance. But they needed something more, something that could give them the edge they so desperately needed. That's when the idea came. Elena stared at the central screen, her mind locking onto a peculiar pattern emerging from the data. An encrypted signal, faint but undeniably human. It wasn't much, but it was enough. This was their opportunity. "Call the scientists," she ordered. "We need access to the alien tech. We need to turn their weapons against them. Now." The room fell silent. A few exchanged uncertain glances. The humans had been attempting to study alien technology for years, but it had been nearly impossible. The technology was far too advanced, and the aliens had kept their secrets close to their chests, always one step ahead. But desperation had a way of shifting the impossible into the realm of possibility. Elena quickly left the command center, her boots echoing against the metal floors. Her team had been gathering in a secure bunker beneath the city, preparing for the next stage of the mission. They were humanity's last hope, their only chance at survival. The air was thick with anticipation as Elena entered the briefing room, where the rest of her squad was already assembling. Their faces grim. "We're not just going to defend anymore," Elena said, her voice unwavering. "We're going on the offensive." A quiet murmur of surprise rippled through the group. The soldiers had trained for years, but no one had expected this, an assault on the alien mothership. It was suicide. Everyone knew it. "But we don't have a choice anymore," Elena continued. "If we don't strike back now, we'll never have another chance. We'll hit them where it hurts, at the heart of their invasion. We take down their mothership, and we cripple their entire fleet." A soldier, Sergeant Reese, raised an eyebrow. "How exactly are we going to do that, Captain? We've seen their ships. They're untouchable." Elena's gaze hardened. "We don't need to touch their ships. We're going to use their own tech against them." The room went quiet again. Elena could see the doubt in their eyes, but she could also see the spark of something else, hope. Hope that for the first time in a long time, they might have a real chance. Elena's voice dropped to a whisper, but it carried weight. "We've found something, a way to access their systems. The key is inside their mothership, and I'm going to need each and every one of you to make it there alive." The soldiers exchanged glances, their minds working through the risk, the potential cost, but none of them spoke up to voice their fears. They all knew this was their best chance, probably their only chance. The room was filled with a shared understanding that they had no choice but to fight with everything they had. "Prepare yourselves," Elena said. "This won't be easy, and there's no going back. But if we fail, Earth will be lost. If we succeed, we take the fight to them, and we win." The team suited up in their advanced exosuits, the metallic hiss of their armor sealing around them. The suits gave them strength beyond human limits, enhanced vision, and the ability to survive in environments that would otherwise be lethal. Elena felt the familiar weight of her own suit settling around her, the power coursing through her limbs. But even the suit couldn't shield her from the weight of what was to come. This was the moment. No more running. No more hiding. As the doors to the bunker slid open, the team moved out into the war zone. The air was thick with smoke, and the sounds of distant explosions echoed across the city. They could see the alien ships, massive and hovering, their weapons trained on the Earth's last standing defense forces. It was clear that the aliens were gearing up for a final strike. But Elena's team had a different plan. They didn't wait for the aliens to come to them. They launched themselves into the heart of the battlefield, moving fast, with purpose, and a deadly determination. Each step took them closer to their target, the alien mothership. It was massive, towering above the landscape like a dark, unyielding mountain. Elena didn't look back. She didn't need to. Her soldiers were right behind her, moving as one, united in purpose. They had only one goal now: destroy the mothership and end the invasion. And as the team neared the alien vessel, Elena's pulse quickened. They were close. They could feel it, the weight of the mission, the pressure mounting. But there was no turning back now. The countdown had already begun, and humanity's answer was clear: war. They were ready to take back their world. The world had changed in a matter of hours. Where once there was hope and the belief that peace could prevail, now there was only the cold, harsh reality of survival. Elena and her team stood at the edge of the battlefield, watching the alien mothership hovering ominously in the distance. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning rubble. Their mission was simple: destroy the heart of the alien invasion, and in doing so, cripple the enemy's forces once and for all. But simple didn't mean easy, not by a long shot. The path ahead was filled with danger. The alien mothership, a colossal structure that defied comprehension, loomed like a shadow over the city. It was impenetrable, surrounded by layers of advanced defenses that could obliterate anything that came too close. The soldiers knew that this mission would be a one-way trip for many of them, but they also knew that this was their only chance to save Earth. There was no time for second thoughts. Elena took a deep breath, her helmet reflecting the harsh glow of the explosions in the distance. The gravity of the moment settled on her shoulders, but she didn't show it. She couldn't afford to. Her soldiers needed her to be strong, to lead them into the heart of the alien nightmare. They needed to know that she believed they could succeed. Because if they didn't, they would fail. Stay sharp, Elena's voice crackled over the comms. We're going in. No turning back. The soldiers nodded in unison. They had all been through hell. But this was different. This was the final push, the moment when everything they had fought for would either be realized or destroyed. They had trained for this. They had prepared for years. They were ready. The team moved forward in a tight formation, weapons raised, every step measured and deliberate. They passed through the ruins of the city, their exosuits making heavy, mechanical sounds as they moved. The eerie quiet of the battlefield was unsettling, but they couldn't afford distractions. The aliens were out there, watching, waiting for any sign of weakness, and Elena knew they wouldn't hesitate to strike as they approached the outskirts of the alien mothership's defenses. Elena signaled for them to take cover. The ship's drones patrolled the area, their glowing red eyes scanning for any intruders. The soldiers had trained for this, how to move undetected, how to strike with precision. Every step now could mean the difference between life and death. Elena's eyes scanned the battlefield, every nerve on edge. She knew the time was coming, the moment when the team would have to make a break for it. They had to get inside the mothership. That was the only way to activate the alien artifact that held the key to destroying their fleet. The plan had been simple, but the execution was anything but. Without warning, a loud, shrill alarm blared through the air. The alien drones had spotted them. It was now or never. Go, 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 Elena shouted, breaking cover and sprinting toward the mothership's outer defenses. Her team followed close behind, their heavy boots pounding the cracked pavement. The drones fired at them, their weapons sending blasts of energy that sent shockwaves through the ground. The soldiers returned fire, their weapons crackling with bright energy. But the drones were relentless. Elena ducked behind a piece of debris just as an energy blast hit the ground, where she had been standing seconds before. The force of the explosion sent a wave of dust and debris into the air, momentarily obscuring her vision. But she didn't hesitate. She was already moving again, advancing toward the mothership. With the rest of her team close behind, their exosuits gave them an edge, allowing them to leap over obstacles and absorb more punishment than normal soldiers could withstand. But it wasn't invincibility. They could still be killed, and every step closer to the mothership increased the risk. Elena's heart raced as she heard the sound of the alien drones closing in. The countdown had begun, and they were running out of time. They needed to reach the mothership's core to access the artifact that could end the invasion. But getting there wouldn't be easy. There were security measures in place, advanced traps and weapons designed to keep invaders out. The aliens had no intention of letting anyone get close. Prepare for a fight, Elena muttered, her voice steady. Keep moving. The team surged forward, pushing through the chaos. Explosions rocked the ground beneath them, sending shockwaves through the air. Elena fired her weapon, the energy blasts tearing through the alien drones, but they kept coming. The closer they got to the mothership, the more defenses activated, and the more desperate their fight became. Then, through the haze of smoke and fire, Elena saw at the entrance to the mothership. It was a massive, metallic door, sealed tight with alien technology. It was their only way in, and they had to get through it before the aliens could reinforce their defenses. Breaching now, Elena shouted. One of her soldiers, Lieutenant Zane, activated the breach charge. The explosive charge hummed, vibrating in the air, before it detonated with a deafening blast. The door exploded inward, revealing a dark passageway beyond. Without missing a beat, Elena and her team charged into the mothership. The interior was a maze of dark corridors, lit by eerie blue lights that cast long shadows across the walls. The alien technology here was even more advanced than anything Earth had seen, with strange symbols and glowing panels lining the walls. But none of it mattered. They were here to do one thing: destroy the mothership, and with it, the heart of the invasion. They moved quickly through the narrow halls, weapons at the ready, each corner a potential ambush. Elena could feel the tension in the air, the weight of what they were about to do. But they couldn't afford fear. They had come too far to stop now. "Stay focused," Elena said, her voice low but firm. "We're almost there." The team pushed forward, past rows of alien tech and security systems that hummed ominously in the darkness. Each step brought them closer to the heart of the mothership, where the alien artifact waited. Elena could feel it in her gut. This was the moment. They would either take back their world or die trying, and they were ready for whatever came next. The walls of the alien mothership seemed to close in around them as Elena and her team navigated the twisting, unfamiliar corridors. Every step they took was filled with the quiet hum of the ship's otherworldly machinery, the constant beat of their boots echoing in the otherwise eerie silence. The vast, alien structure seemed alive, its metal walls pulsing with an unsettling rhythm, as if the ship itself were aware of their presence and angry that they dared to invade its heart. The weight of the mission pressed down on Elena's chest like 1,000 tons. They had made it this far, but each step deeper into the mothership took them closer to the unknown. The stakes were higher now than they had ever been before. The artifact they sought, the key to ending the invasion, was still ahead, somewhere in the depths of the ship. But it wasn't just about getting there. It was about surviving long enough to use it. Elena's heart raced, not from fear, but from the awareness of how close they were to changing the course of humanity's fate. Their mission had been clear from the start: destroy the heart of the invasion, strike at the mothership, and force the alien forces into retreat. But the closer they got to their goal, the more dangerous the path became. There was no turning back now. As they moved through the winding hallways, the team's exosuits allowed them to move with swift precision, their every action coordinated like a well-oiled machine. But this wasn't a drill. They were fighting for their homes, their families, their survival. Every member of the team felt that deep inside them. Every soldier knew that if they failed, Earth would fall. Their world, the world they knew and loved, would cease to exist. And yet, there was no fear, only resolve. They were humanity's last hope. "We're almost there," Elena's voice crackled through the comms, firm and steady. But even she couldn't ignore the growing tension in the air. Something was wrong. The ship's structure seemed to shift as they advanced, the walls growing darker, the air colder. The lights flickered ominously as if responding to their presence. And then, just as they rounded a corner, the first alien sentries appeared. Tall, skeletal figures, their bodies sleek and armored, stepped out of the shadows. Their eyes gleamed with malevolent intelligence, and their weapons hummed with lethal energy. Without hesitation, Elena raised her weapon. "Engage." The team reacted instantly, their training kicking in as they opened fire. The sound of energy blasts rang out in the narrow hallway, lighting up the dark spaces with flashes of blue and white. The aliens responded with speed, their weapons slashing through the air. But the human soldiers were faster. They had the advantage of teamwork and relentless determination. Elena moved with fluid precision, her every move a blend of combat instincts and calculated strategy. She fired with deadly accuracy, each shot hitting its target. The alien sentries didn't stand a chance against the human soldiers, who had nothing left to lose. But even as they fought, Elena could feel the weight of time pressing down on them. Every second spent in battle was a second taken away from reaching the artifact. The longer they stayed here, the more time the aliens had to reinforce their defenses. "We have to keep moving," Elena shouted over the comms. "Get to the core now." With the sentries eliminated, the team pushed forward, advancing deeper into the mothership. The ship's hallways grew wider, and the alien architecture became more intricate. Its purpose unclear, but undeniably intimidating. The walls seemed to pulse with an energy of their own, as if the ship itself were alive, aware of the danger its intruders posed. And then they reached at the central chamber. It was vast, its ceiling lost in shadow, and at its heart stood the alien artifact, glowing with an unnatural light. The air around it shimmered, as if the very space were bending under the power of the object. It was unlike anything the humans had ever seen, an orb of dark energy, encased in a cage of alien metal, pulsing with an almost hypnotic rhythm. Elena stood frozen for a moment, staring at the artifact. The entire mission had led them here, and now, standing in the chamber, she could feel the weight of humanity's fate resting on her shoulders. This was the key. This was the weapon that would end it all. But as she stepped forward, a cold voice echoed from the shadows, chilling her to the bone. "You think you can defeat us so easily?" The voice was both distant and all around them, as if the very walls of the ship were speaking. A figure stepped into the light, a tall, imposing alien, its body draped in dark armor that shimmered with an ethereal glow. Its face was hidden behind a mask, but Elena could feel its eyes on her, cold and calculating. "You are mere insects," the alien continued, its voice dripping with disdain. "You think you can challenge us, take our power, and survive. You are fools." Elena's pulse quickened, but she didn't flinch. She had come too far to let fear stop her now. "We've fought for every inch of this world. We're not stopping now." The alien's laugh was cold, cruel. "Then die, like all the others before you." Without warning, the chamber erupted into chaos. Alien drones materialized from the shadows, their weapons ready to fire. The artifact, it seemed, was not only a weapon, it was also a trap. The alien forces had anticipated this moment, prepared for it. They had been waiting for humanity to reach the artifact, and now that they had, the trap was sprung. Elena didn't hesitate. Fight. The battle that ensued was brutal. The human soldiers were outnumbered, but they fought with a fury born from the will to survive. Energy blasts lit up the chamber, and the sound of combat filled the air. Elena's team fought fiercely, but it was clear that they couldn't keep up with the sheer number of alien forces flooding into the room. The tide of battle was shifting. "Captain, we need to activate the artifact," Lieutenant Zane shouted, his voice strained. "Now," Elena nodded. She knew what had to be done. The artifact was the key to winning this war, and they couldn't afford to waste any more time. As the alien forces closed in, she made a split-second decision. "Cover me," she shouted. With a burst of speed, Elena darted toward the artifact. She could feel the weight of the world on her shoulders, but she didn't hesitate. With one final, desperate push, she reached the artifact, her hands moving quickly to interface with its alien controls. The room seemed to darken as the power of the artifact surged to life, and then, with a blinding flash of light, the artifact activated. Elena's world exploded into chaos. The blinding light from the artifact seemed to consume everything around them. Elena's body froze as the energy surged through the chamber, flooding every corner of the massive room with a pulse of raw power. It was as if the very fabric of reality had bent, the air thick with an electric hum that reverberated in her bones. The aliens, once so confident, now stood paralyzed, their faces twisted in horror as the ship shuddered violently beneath them. For a brief, surreal moment, everything seemed suspended in time. The chaos, the battle, the screams of soldiers and aliens alike, all fading into the background of the overwhelming alien energy. Elena's fingers tightened around the artifact, feeling the surge of power beneath her skin, pushing against her will like a living thing. It wanted to be unleashed. The weight of her decision, of humanity's decision, hit her hard. They had reached this point because they had no choice. The alien invasion had pushed them beyond diplomacy, beyond negotiations, beyond everything they had once believed. Now, humanity had no option but to fight back with everything they had, to wield a weapon that was never meant for them. And it was working. The artifact was responding. The mothership was weakening, its once impenetrable defenses flickering as the energy from the core began to destabilize. Elena's pulse raced as the ship groaned beneath them. The force of the artifact's power had begun to tear at the very structure of the mothership. The aliens had underestimated how far humanity was willing to go to survive. The artifact was their salvation, and Elena felt the gravity of that truth. But it wasn't enough yet. They needed more. They needed to fully activate the artifact's core to bring the alien fleet to its knees. "Captain, it's working," Sergeant Reese shouted over the chaos, his voice thick with disbelief. "But we need to keep the pressure on. If we don't, it could destabilize before we can finish." Elena didn't need to hear more. The alien forces were regaining their composure, gathering in the shadows, preparing for one final assault. The ship was beginning to tremble as if it were fighting back, its energy systems desperately trying to hold together. But Elena wasn't about to give up. This was at the turning point. Humanity had fought tooth and nail for this moment, and she wasn't about to let it slip away. "We push forward," Elena yelled, her voice cutting through the sound of destruction. "Keep the pressure on them. We're almost there." The team moved with renewed urgency, advancing through the chamber, keeping their weapons raised as the alien forces closed in once more. This was no longer just a battle for Earth. This was a fight for the survival of everything they had built, everything they had fought for. The alien mothership's defenses were weakening, but they weren't done yet. In the distance, the remaining alien forces gathered, forming ranks in a last-ditch attempt to stop them. But Elena saw it in their eyes: fear. The aliens were afraid, and fear was something that humanity could use to its advantage. Elena's soldiers, battle-hardened and resolute, didn't hesitate for a second. They opened fire, sending pulse blasts and grenades in every direction. The force of the explosions rocked the chamber, pushing back the alien soldiers and clearing the path to the heart of the mothership. "Elena," Lieutenant Zane shouted, his voice frantic. "The artifact, it's not holding. We need to sink the systems or we lose everything." Elena's eyes widened. The artifact was unstable. Its power was coursing through the ship, destabilizing the entire structure. But unless they stabilized the connection, the entire mothership could collapse in on itself. They had come so far, and now they were so close to winning, but one mistake could undo everything. "Get to the control panels," Elena ordered, her mind racing as she sprinted toward the center of the chamber. "We need to link the artifact's core to the mothership's mainframe. It's the only way to prevent a meltdown." The soldiers moved in sync, taking cover and creating a defensive perimeter as Elena approached the control panel. The alien technology was complex, its interface unlike anything Earth's scientists had ever seen. But Elena wasn't about to let that stop her. She had trained for this moment, studied every last detail of the mission. The soldiers had prepared for the impossible, and now it was time to do what seemed impossible: control the power of the artifact. With one fluid motion, Elena slid her hand into the control panel's interface, her fingers flying over the alien keys as the chamber shook violently. The walls groaned under the strain as the artifact's energy continued to pulse. Sweat trickled down Elena's face as she worked, each moment feeling like a lifetime. The alien forces, regrouped and fierce, surged toward them. But Elena's focus never wavered. The air around her crackled with energy, the sheer power of the artifact pressing against her senses. She could feel the alien power pulsing through her fingertips as she sensed the systems together, tying the mothership's core to the artifact's force. There was no time for hesitation. The entire ship was falling apart, its defenses crumbling under the artifact's influence. Elena's mind raced, calculating every possible outcome as she desperately tried to stabilize the connection. She could hear the pounding of alien boots, feel the weight of every passing second. They were running out of time. And then, just as she thought they might fail, the systems finally clicked into place. The artifact hummed with a powerful surge, and the mothership trembled one final time. As if resisting its inevitable end, Elena stood up, her breath coming in heavy gasps, and turned to face her team. "We did it. It's done." But the victory wasn't without a cost. The ship's systems began to overload, and the energy released from the artifact cascaded through the mothership like a wave, shredding its insides, its engines burning out in a spectacular display of destruction. Elena's heart raced as she watched the alien forces scrambling to escape. They had lost. The mothership, their weapon of domination, was crumbling. The alien invaders had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they would pay the price. As the mothership collapsed in a series of fiery explosions, Elena and her team stood firm, watching as the final remnants of the alien threat burned away. The artifact's power had finished the job, but it had taken everything the invaders had, everything they had built down with it. Earth had won, and humanity had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, it would never surrender. The war was over. The aliens had been defeated, and Earth, though scarred, had emerged victorious. The battle for their survival had been won. The final moments of the alien mothership's destruction were a blur of fire, light, and the deafening roar of collapsing metal. Elena stood in the middle of the crumbling chamber, her breath heavy and ragged, her armor covered in dust and blood. The team was scattered around her, panting. trying to catch their breath as the echoes of the massive explosion reverberated through the wreckage. The once mighty alien ship was no more, its towering form now a pile of twisted, smoldering wreckage. Elena's mind raced as she looked at the shattered remains of the mothership. The artifact, the key to the invasion's destruction, had torn through everything. She could feel the weight of victory settle into her bones, but there was no time to savor it. The battle wasn't over. Not yet. The world above was still in chaos. Earth had fought, and humanity had won its first decisive victory. But the war was far from over. While the mothership was down, countless alien warships still hovered in Earth's atmosphere, their commanders scrambling to understand what had just happened. The alien threat had been dealt a brutal blow, but it wasn't completely gone. The invaders would retaliate. "Elena, we need to get out of here." Sergeant Reese's voice broke through the haze. His words were grounded in urgency, his face streaked with soot and sweat. "The mothership is going down, but if the others haven't gotten the message yet, they'll strike back hard." Elena nodded, shaking off the lingering fog in her mind. They had done it, they had fought back, and humanity had taken its stand. But this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new, the first spark of hope in a war that had seemed impossible to win. But there was no time for celebration. "We move now," Elena said, her voice calm but firm, the weight of leadership settling back onto her shoulders. "The war's not over. We've given humanity a chance to survive, but we need to be ready for whatever comes next." As the team moved quickly through the wreckage, Elena couldn't help but feel the sense of loss that weighed on her. So many lives had been lost in the fight, so many people who would never see the victory they had fought for. Earth had paid a heavy price, but the cost of survival had always been high. Their exit from the mothership was a blur of motion, the air thick with smoke and the aftershocks of destruction. The corridors, once alien and unfamiliar, now felt like a familiar battleground. The walls were scarred and shaking, but the team moved with purpose, as if they had always known this moment would come. They fought through the alien corridors like warriors on a mission, humanity's mission. Outside, the battle was still raging. The alien ships, though greatly weakened, were not giving up. The sky was dark with their craft, and the sound of combat echoed through the atmosphere. Humanity had a victory, but the war for their planet was far from over. The alien forces were regrouping, attempting to mount a counterattack. Earth's forces, though exhausted, had no choice but to keep pushing. Elena's team made it back to their ship, battered but unbroken. As they boarded, they could feel the intense pressure of what came next. The human military had held its ground, but now they were up against an enemy that had yet to truly experience Earth's wrath. The fleet was scattered, but the warships were making their way back to Earth's last strongholds, the remnants of their resistance forming the final bastion of humanity. As Elena strapped herself into the pilot's seat, the reality of the next phase of the war settled over her. The fight for Earth was far from over, but for the first time in years, Elena felt a glimmer of something that had been missing: hope. The alien invaders had underestimated humanity. They had thought Earth would bow to their will, that the human spirit would break under the pressure. But the invasion had failed, and humanity had proven that it would fight for its existence with everything it had. The control room hummed with activity as the rest of the crew prepared for their next move. They had no time to rest. The next wave of alien reinforcements would be arriving soon. Earth's forces had a victory, but the aliens would not allow it to stand without retaliation. This wasn't just about taking back Earth anymore. It was about sending a message to every alien species in the galaxy: prepare for launch. Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of everything that had happened. The ship's engines roared to life, and she could feel the force of it, the surge of power that would take them into the sky once again. "We've won this battle, but now we take the fight to them. We show them what humanity is capable of." As the ship lifted off, Elena's mind was focused on what lay ahead. The aliens would come again, and the battle would rage on. But humanity's answer had been clear. They would not be defeated. Not now. Not ever. Outside, Earth's skies were lit with the flares of warships, both human and alien. The sounds of battle echoed in the distance, but for the first time, Elena wasn't afraid. Humanity had faced its darkest moment and had emerged stronger. The war had just begun, but Earth had shown that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity would never bow, and that was something the aliens would never forget. Elena looked out through the viewport, her gaze fixed on the vastness of space, where the stars shone like distant beacons of hope. Earth had survived, and now humanity would stand strong, ready for whatever came next. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it was theirs to shape. With a final glance at the Earth below, Elena spoke the words that would carry them into the future. "Let's finish this."